Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining. We're going to give a couple of minutes for people to join. In the meantime, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. There's a prompt for you on the screen. Thanks for being here.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
It's over. It means getting tensions.
Hi everyone, if you're just joining in, welcome. Thanks for being here. We're giving another minute for people to join. In the meantime, introduce yourselves in the chat so we see who is joining us today. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Amazing. Thank you all for the introductions. I'm sure more are coming in on the chat. And I think everyone is also here, which is fantastic. So thank you for just introducing yourselves and your ventures. Super inspiring to learn about the work you're all doing on the WhatsApp group, but also here. So with that, Gail, should we do a quick round of introductions while we're all in the Zoom call just to see each other as well? I think
Sure.
it's lovely to be able to see you all. Awesome.
Sounds
Okay.
great.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Abi. You can call me Abi. I am originally from Nepal, but I am currently based in Costa Rica. I'm one of the co-founders of Little Big Fun, and I'll be your facilitator for this course. Gail, I'll pass it to you.
Yes, I am Gail, and though I'm based in Colorado, I am now currently in California. And I met Abi almost a decade ago when he was starting a nonprofit social venture. And I was teaching a class as someone who had a long-term experience in philanthropy about grant writing and funding proposal writing. And we have been fast friends and colleagues ever since. And his venture is super thriving, not because of me, but because of him. And you'll hear more about that. The two of us together, I think, have a real dynamic, real life experience of letting you know that what can happen between those who are giving money and those who are needing money. And we try to focus our course in that way with respect for both sides of the table, shall I say. And Little Big Fun is very creative. It's different. It's going to ask you to think about your mission differently and creatively, kind of out of the box, for lack of a better term. And though you may have certain guidelines with resolution projects, we hope that what we bring will just open up a few other ways of thinking about what it means to raise money in the world. I also have quite a long experience in storytelling and filmmaking. So maybe we can talk about some of that at some point as well. That's enough from me. Who's next? Okay, I'm going to call on David, you're in the square box right next to mine.
Nice. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you guys. My name is David Delgado. I was born and raised in Venezuela. I'm the co-founder of Espacio Educa. We are a social venture that we are trying to solve is youth unemployment and the lack of opportunities that people from low-income communities of my country have because when they graduate from high school, many of them doesn't have the opportunity to go to university. So we have created this bootcamp in programming from the front-end development, so then they can access to a first job and help their families to to outgrow poverty, right? So that's our venture. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great, you get to call on the next person.
I see Anand.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anand. I am from the US, from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So Gale, fellow Southwesterner. But I now live here in Baltimore, Maryland. So my venture was Refugee Youth Film Festival. That was back in 2019 and 2020. We moved into COVID, kind of fell apart. We're one of Resolution Project's poster children for how failure can still be helpful. You can still learn a lot as an entrepreneur when not successful in like your original intention. But yeah, excited to be here. I'm like helping out a few nonprofits write grants right now. And so figured that this would be particularly relevant, but also interested in doing some consulting myself. It's like a part-time. So I would like to learn how to propose and pitch projects effectively. And that's why I'm here. Thank you so much for hosting. I will call on Christian next.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, everybody, for your introduction. My name is Christian Ado. I'm from Benin. I'm a co-founder and Chief Executive Officer at Bioplanet TMC Ltd. At Bioplanet TMC, we produce granulated organic fertilizer for biodegradable waste recycling. So that is the solution to ensure agricultural system sustainability. And also we do offer rural women some many trainings in women defense, rights defense, please, in best agricultural practices so that we can ensure food security and everything. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm happy to be one of you today. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you. Who are you choosing to go next?
Florence?
Okay, thank you so much. Florence Namuvi is my name. I'm from Uganda. I'm a software engineer by professional. I am a co-founder of Women in Community Network. That is a venture funded by Resolution. But now I decided to go back to my own community and solve one of the problems I've been wanting to solve since I was 16 years. So right now I'm working on a venture called Ladies for Ladies. And Ladies for Ladies, its main aim is to empower female small-scale farmers. This is because 80% of the households in Uganda, villages in Uganda, they're headed by women. And these women, 89% of them, their main source of income is farming, which they practice on small scale. Yeah, that is out of my experience. That's how my mom raised us, on feeding on small scale farmers. So what Ladies for Ladies do, before the season, we train these ladies on modern farming methods, how to plant, how to take care of their gardens, so that they can get more yields than what they get. And that is before the season. When the season starts, we provide them with seeds and fertilizers for free. So they plant. We also visit them during the season to see whether they are applying what we told them or not. And after the season, another major problem they face is the market. In villages, these middlemen tend to buy things from these women at a cheaper cost. So after harvesting, we connect them to better markets. So in short, that's what Ladies for Ladies do. Thank you, and I'm so glad that I'm part of this cohort, hoping for the best. I'll be calling on Grace.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Grace Yaku from Ghana. I'm the founder for RW Shea Butter Limited Company in Ghana here. The aim of RW Shea Butter Limited Company is to empower women and also to help women raise their standards to the creation of jobs and employment opportunities they can generate revenue for themselves. And all of this will be done through the production of shea butter for sales to the international market. And I'm so excited to be here because I am here to learn nothing but the best so that I can help my venture come up and what it has been found. Thank you and hope you see the best. So I'll call on Catherine. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Katie from El Salvador, and I am part of a social venture called Explorarte. We are working on bringing access to mental health with communities, and we work with a methodology of art, books, letters, and we provide them with workshops in hope to handle emotional management. And after they pass for a process of workshops, we provide them with accompaniment with the replica so they can apply what they have learned with their children. So that is the way that we reach more students through the teachers and community leaders. And our mission is to enhance mental health in the communities of El Salvador. Thank you. I will, maybe I will call Midas. I think here Midas, the way. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I see here Midas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Catherine, for choosing me. I'm Yawa Mayas. I'm joining in from Uganda. I'm the founder of Simbla Ventures Limited, a rural-based social enterprise that is supporting smallholder farmers using mushroom growing. We work with village savings and lending associations to identify and train smallholder farmers in mushroom growing. We provide the necessary support during the process of growing, and then we buy off their produce. That's what we are doing, but I'm a resolution fellow class 11. My venture was for education that served the same community before we handed over to the community to run it, and then I switched it now to mushroom growing, still in the same community in Western Uganda. I'm happy to be joining in and excited about everything we are going to learn. I will choose, I hope I won't choose someone who has already spoken, but Christian Ado, if you haven't spoken, then I'll go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maras. But I have already spoken, so
Yes,
I can
yes.
call Marion at Pile.
Yeah, that's great.
Hi everyone, my name is Marion Apio. I am from Uganda. I am the CEO of Girls Alive Uganda. This is a non-profit initiative that empowers young women in rural communities in Uganda with menstrual health education. We go ahead to skill them to make reusable sanitary towels using locally available materials, mostly cloth. The idea behind Girls Alive Uganda was to set up some form of manufacturing plant that would allow for girls to access menstrual hygiene products so that they can stay in school. I'm very privileged to be here. I'm joining in from UC Berkeley, where I'm attending my master's in journalism. I hope to use Girls Alive Uganda as a way to sort of like pivot into addressing every other need that girls want, be telling stories around women and girls. And I think Girls Alive Uganda is a very good way to sort of like really use my skills and passion in, you know, journalism and the platform, because I mean, being a journalist sort of like gives you this whole like space for you to even impact more than just the 1,000 within Uganda. And for this for the Little Big Fund, I'm so excited because since we got the resolution fund, Girls Alive Uganda has not yet gotten any money, and yet we've done like so much work in different communities. The goal was to really be in one district, but we've been able to sort of like venture into various districts around the country. And I'm wondering, like, why aren't we attracting money? Why aren't we able to sort of fundraise? We have so many volunteers, about 60 volunteers that every other time come on to support the project, but then we've not been able to sort of like capitalize and turn those resources into money. And when I saw this call, I said, this is for me. The team is very excited to be for us to venture into this, and I can't wait to learn so much from everyone. And I want to call the other person, and that should be Anil. But thank you very much, and I am so excited about this opportunity.
All right,
Anil?
thank you. Yes, sorry, I was just getting connection challenges. Thank you, Marion, and the team that has already spoken. My name is Ayebare Anil Pelis. I'm from Uganda. I'm a co-founder of the Piglet Seed, where we mainly deal in empowering village young ladies and women, single mothers, economically through donating 2 piglets to each of our beneficiaries so that they can be able to benefit from them. Also from this camp, I'm really looking forward to benefiting a lot, especially when it comes to pitching. Yeah, that is where my focus is. Otherwise, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to an amazing session or sessions with you guys. Thank you so much.
And then we have one more to hear from.
Is that Sandra?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm clear. My background is a bit noisy. Hello?
It seems like the microphone is not well connected. It might be an internet or a microphone issue. We hear a lot of scratchy noises.
Am I clear?
Yes, that was, yes.
Background is a bit noisy. My name is Sandra. I'm a fresh graduate. I did social work and social administration, and I'm a co-founder of Questa Organic Products. I'm very happy to be part of this wonderful team and looking forward to learn a lot from everyone from different countries and my country as well. Currently, I'm running the project with my co-founder Edwin, but we have divided our project into very many different sections, and right now I'm handling the part of farming and then other things. I'll get to share more as we continue. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. I just want to offer this up as an opportunity right from the start for self-reflection, for learning. What is it that you learned as you were listening to everyone introduce themselves, herself, himself? You know, if we were in a great big group and I was the main big philanthropist, right? What do you think would be going through my mind? What I want to be taking notes on? This whole idea of introducing ourselves is one very important element to think about, because you're not only saying something about who you are, you're saying something about what you do, but you're also going to be playing into convention. You're going to be playing into what you think you're supposed to say, because that's what you've said to everybody else. And of course, there are going to be standards to follow. Of course, if you meet some funder, you're going to want to default, let's say, to the usual way of introducing yourself. And all of that is fine. But I'm just showing you at the beginning here that every step of the way with Little Big Fund, we're going to ask you to be rigorous in your thinking and learning, and also in challenging yourself. Like, how could I have done that a little bit differently? How could I have stood out even a little bit more? And I know that we all start with the word I. That makes sense, I guess, most of the time. I know that we have varying levels of, confidence, right? Some of us are going to talk briefly. Some of us are going to be at length. That's all fine. Connectivity is an important issue. But just take this as a moment to understand that in this process with Little Big Fund, all of us are peers, teaching one another in what we know, in how we hold ourselves, in what we say. So continue to reflect on, what does it mean to introduce yourself to a group, in a group of people who might know you or might not know you? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Abby, and he's going to go through just briefly what this Little Big Fun 4-week thing is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gail, for that reflection as well. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen here. Is this visible for all? Okay, perfect. Welcome. Welcome everyone to the Little Big Bootcamp. We're so excited to have you with us. We've been working with the Resolution Fellowship for about 3 years now. I didn't introduce myself as a Resolution Fellow, but I am also a Resolution Fellow from 2013. And so have been part of this network myself for over a decade now. And so it's always very special to be able to work with Resolution Fellows. We have 2 boot camps a year. So there's one in the fall, there's one in the spring. And every time we have about 10 amazing, incredible, inspiring people like you all that come together for a short period of time, and we get to really work on your fundraising plan and develop proposals for you all. So just a brief kind of explanation of what this bootcamp is. This is a 4-week virtual course for Resolution Fellows that are trying to sustain their social ventures. And so in many cases, you received some early stage funding or have gotten some sort of resource to be able to get started, but are now facing this challenge of, how do I sustain the venture, right? I think it was interesting, a couple of people mentioned why this is important for them. And for many of you, you received that first grant to get started, but now you're facing the question of, how do I keep growing? How do I keep doing the work? And this is really coming at that point of helping bridge some of that knowledge gap in fundraising and proposal writing. Now, the biggest thing to tell you, and we'll look at this in a second, is that Resolution and Little Big Fund, we've come together to develop a really unique course. And this course is unlike any other. And so rather than giving you a step-by-step plan to fundraise, which is definitely doable, we actually use a lot of creative activities and exercises to help you get to those to those conclusions yourself. And so we're not here to necessarily lecture. These are the bootcamp is not a lecture style session, but rather these are a series of workshops, and we workshop your proposals, we workshop your mission, we workshop your your M&E, all of it, so that you have a lot of clarity when you are then in front of a funder pitching your venture. We have 4 sessions starting today. The last session is on the 1st of December, and each session will cover a specific topic. And so we'll start today with an introduction and narrative. So focus on the first part of what most people will look at when they meet you, right? The first thing they want to know is what is your story as a founder? What is the story that you're telling? What is your mission, right? What is the thing that your organization aims to achieve? And what are your assets? What have you done so far? What's the traction that you have so far? And so we're really going to try to cover that initial meeting that you might have, or the initial reading that people might see from your website or your proposal. The second session next week will focus on problem and really understanding and defining your problem statement. Once people get introduced to you and they find it interesting, they'll ask you, okay, explain your understanding of what is the problem. How are you coming to this conclusion? What kind of data do you have? And so the problem statement becomes a really crucial second step in your proposal, in your pitch, to be able to really explain what it is that you're trying to solve. Our third session in a couple of weeks will focus on your project request. So that is really a specific project that you're working on with budget. So that's really getting into the details, right? It is unlikely that your first meeting or your first email or your first interaction with a funder is going to start with a budget. They're going to want to start with your story. But eventually, after the first couple of meetings or first couple of email exchanges, they will ask you for a specific budget, a specific project request. And this is a place where you have to have a lot of clarity. You might have amazing stories to tell, and we have no doubt you have an amazing set of problems that you're solving. We have no doubt. But the biggest area where we find a lot of challenges is not having clarity of what it is that you're trying to achieve and how much is it going to cost to achieve that, right? So really trying to clarify that is important. And then the last part that we're going to cover is your impact management. So how do you then communicate the work that you've done? How do you communicate that with your funders, but also with your supporters and other kind of overall, like community that you're building for your venture? And we'll break down impact into several sections as well. So those are the 4 big topics that we cover throughout each of these workshops. We're going to do a lot of other kind of smaller activities so that you can also practice getting on a Zoom call, practice getting off of mute to answer questions. You're going to practice reading each other's proposals and proposals of other people to be able to kind of put that mind in the headspace of a funder. And so it's not just it's a multi-dimensional course in many ways, and we love that, and we hope you'll enjoy this process as well. The final deliverables are 2 set. One of them will be due at the end of our 4th session. And so that is your living proposal or living grant document. And so whether you are a for-profit or a nonprofit venture, you will work on a 3 to 5 page document. We call it a living document because this is something that you will come back to once and again once you finish this in the course. And this is something that you will submit to a funder for consideration. Now, a point of clarity is that this is a course. This is not a fundraising, accelerator or anything like that. There is no funding available. However, we are going to practice as if there was funding available, right? So you're going to submit a proposal at the end of this course to a funder for a specific proposal or a project that you are working on. And we will work week by week on specific sections of your proposal. So you're not going to just submit 1 5-page at the end of the 4 weeks. Instead, this week you're going to work on a small section. Next week you'll work on another section, and by the end of the 4 weeks you'll have finished a 5-page document that you're going to submit to Gail and I. After that gets submitted, after our 4th session, Gail and I will take some time to read through your proposals and prepare a set of questions, and we'll offer an optional hot seat session. So many of you might have already had some meetings with a funder or a local partner. You might have some experience on how to answer questions about your work or your proposal, but for many others, this might be the first time that you're actually going to be facing a funder. And so we're going to prepare a set of questions based on what you've submitted and what we know about your venture, and we'll practice a one-on-one 10-minute meeting for you to really answer questions as if you were having a funder meeting. This is an excellent opportunity for you to practice a real-life funder meeting so that you can really test out different assumptions that you have. Should I tell this story or the other? Should I be mentioning this or that? This is a great place for you in a very safe environment to practice that, so that eventually when you are in front of that funder, you have had enough experience to actually answer these questions. This will be offered after the 4 weeks, so it's not going to be part of the 4 weeks. And we will set up some dates so you can sign up for the hot seat session as well. Awesome. I know this is a lot of information, so we'll just pause here to see if there are any questions, anything that I haven't explained, and we are happy to unpack that with you before we start the session.
I guess just to, yeah, perfect. So what is our access to you two after the, like, yeah, if we decide not to go on the hot seat option because maybe it's not as like timely or as relevant for us, then like, what is our access to you two to schedule something maybe like 6 months later?
I love that question. So one of the things that we always talk about in Little Big Fun is that once you take a course, you're always welcomed into the community. We've got about 170 other like resolution fellows, but also other social entrepreneurs from around the world who constantly keep in touch. And they took our course back in 2018 or 19, and they're still very active. And so we actually open up a lot of different programs after the course. We have a monthly convening where we invite another social entrepreneur to come and talk about their work, and you can learn from them. We also offer twice a year an office hour, which is kind of a unique thing, where Gil and I will just have 15-minute slots where you can just join in. Usually happens at the end of the year and then mid-year, where you could just talk about like what challenges are you facing? Is there a particular application you're working on? Something more personal, right? Like something that you're thinking about but haven't been able to talk to. So we are completely accessible and available in the future.
Yeah, and thank you, Avi. And I'll just jump in that anytime a little big believer, which is what you'll kind of get to be, let's say, after you're in the course, anytime one of the alums writes to us with a question or wants to share a photo about what they're doing, we respond. And we often will take those stories of progress, let's say, from one of the believers, and we'll put it in our newsletter. Or we may say, oh, we just met this farmer in Nebraska who's doing exactly the same thing you're doing. So it's an open conversation. And we hope that it's always dynamic and that it always feels welcoming.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that like very much is aligned with what Resolution Project is like socially, right? So that it's cool that, we're just merging those spaces. My other question was, for maybe those of us who don't have an active venture or are not like actively sustaining or actively looking to raise or propose, are we trying, can we like modify this in some ways to like, okay, cool, all right, perfect. That was that was I was a little bit of a hesitation, so I appreciate that. Cool.
Yeah, that's totally, yeah, I think so.
Sorry,
and I would say that as we go along, ask any questions if they're specific to your needs and your ideas, and then we'll try to also remember to be as creatively agile as we can. And in the writing assignments, if you have something that you want to propose that we review, let's say, if you want us to be like an editor of something, but we'll be very agile and flexible, of course.
I appreciate this. This is very cool. Looking forward to it.
For sure. And an idea that I think in the past we've kind of offered for if you're like, let's say your venture is not raising money right now, and if you want to practice the art of like raising funds and writing proposal, you can pick an ideal organization that you would love to work with or work for, especially as a consultant. And you can work on a proposal for them, right? Like they don't have to be involved, but you can actually kind of do some of that work. And something really cool that you can do is at the end of this course, actually send to them and say, hey, this is what I built, like just out of the blue. Could we like have a conversation? So this might be a really exciting opportunity that way as well. Great questions. Amazing. Okay, anyone else questions? Anything that you're unclear about? It can be about the dates, it can be about the sessions, curriculum.
And everyone is on the WhatsApp group, correct? And the WhatsApp group can be a way if a question comes up as soon as this session is over, which always happens to me. I always think about the thing after I leave the store. Then, send them on the WhatsApp or talk to one another. You're all very much experts in and of yourselves as a peer group. Okay, so we're going to go on and talk about story. And, I find story to be just such a fascinating word, right? Some people use it with a capital S, story, right? Or like the news broadcasters will say, just breaking, leading story. People will say, tell me your story. And so I don't know if I have a particular definition for what story is, and I encourage all of you to be thinking about what kind of story you're going to tell to what kind of audience, right? Think about the audience when you're doing that. At the beginning of this session, you told a story when you gave your introduction. There was a little bit of story in there, right? Whether it was about where you're located or what the mission is that you're doing, all of that is story. You have probably written a personal story either for resolution or some other application. What we're going to do with story is add to that learning. And we're going to look at how one organization that we're connected to tells the story of the work, the story of the program, the story of us. And we're going to watch a video. And the video is from an organization that's called Intercambio Uniting Communities. And I think that this is an amazingly interesting example of storytelling. And let's just watch it. And we'll play it twice because sometimes it has to buffer and all that. But listen carefully. And we're going to watch it 2 times. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about it. Okay, here we go.
I come from China, and my name is Wenpei. And I moved to Colorado almost 3 years. When I first arrived in the United States, I feel everything for me is different. The teacher is really nice because they're very patient and very friendly. And if you have any question, you just ask them, they can reply to you very quickly. So it's a very nice place, very warm place, very wonderful place to help the students study English. Now I feel it's very different for my life because I can have more confidence to talk to people. And every month I can go with my husband, they do some tea tasting, so that let me feel so I make more friends, so that's let me feel very happy. I can share more my topic or conversation. I think I have a very big dream. I hope I can become like director, like film director, but that's just my dream. I don't know I can do it, but I think I can keep on trying to do that if after my English become more better. So I think maybe one day I can do that.
Oh, Gail, you're
Yeah,
muted.
Gail, you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay. Did everyone see that smoothly? Did it buffer okay? Everyone got to see that okay? Okay, so maybe we only need to watch it once. All right. So the name of the organization is called Intercambio Uniting Communities. Okay. What do you know is the story of Intercambio based on that video? What do you learn? Anybody jump in.
Yeah, what I understood about the organization is that they are helping immigrants that go to the US. And what I understood is that they are teaching English, which is the way in which they can feel part of a community, like a big problem for someone that is joining a new culture. And that's the way in which they are helping Wenpei in this case.
Yeah, and if I may add, I think from her story, we get to understand that there are a number of challenges that people who move to the US encounter, and this particular organization is addressing those small challenges like cultural shock, language barrier, like David has mentioned. And so I could also get a glimpse of what the future looks like for the organization based off sort of like the dreams and future prospects. Her personal dreams sort of like give a bigger reflection of where they're heading.
Great. What else did you learn? Anyone have other things? All of that's totally what I got, took away from it. Any other elements of learning that came from that?
Maybe to add, this is Pelis, talking about her dream, maybe in pursuing film director. You realize there is a barrier currently, which is English, but she's trying to work on it. And that's why she was hopeful that maybe after her English has stabilized, if I may use that word, yeah, she may continue to pursue her dream of being a director. So maybe if I am to relate it to our daily lives, of course, we always have dreams, but At the moment, there are always barriers, but how we use those barriers to overcome them and achieve what we need is what matters most. Yeah.
I agree. All of you are just so smart viewers and listeners. And what I really appreciate about this example of story is, let's say that Intercambio wanted to make a pitch, right? And in this digital busy age, right, they show that first. Already in that piece, we know the mission. We know something about the beneficiaries. We understand about what the hopes and dreams and the metrics and the accomplishments are. We understand what it's doing. We understand why it's needed. I mean, we got a lot about their work in the voice of one of their beneficiaries. I also really appreciate that the power to tell the story was granted in this particular case to one of their students. And so there was no sense of polishing her, right? We didn't tell her that she had to have a perfect grammatical sentence, right? She says something like more better. That's okay, because that's how she's speaking. That honors her voice. And so when I hear their title, Intercambio, Uniting Communities, I get it. I get what they're doing. Then after that, there could be the story of in 2001, we started, right? And all of that. So this is just an idea for you to consider as you're creatively coming and shaping what it is that you want your particular audience member to know. Maybe your first thing is a testimonial. Maybe your first thing is a success story. Because often, I will just tell you that funders, whether they're business, corporate, philanthropists, they do hear the same kind of story over and over. That's nobody's fault, but it's what has happened in our system, right? And we want to encourage you to break a little bit out of the system, because you're smart and you're creative and you know what you're doing, and try to approach it from the side door. Come to the party through the back door, not necessarily through the front door, if you know what I mean. Okay, enough of that. That was wonderful. Thank you. I don't think we have to watch it again, but it gives you some food for thought, I hope, about what you can do to tell story.
Thank you so much, Gail. And just in terms of the resources and materials, there's a video that we're going to share. So for all of the sections we cover, we also have recorded a series of videos for you all to watch. And so what we're going to do is we're going to share this with you after the course. They're 7 minutes long. It's really short. And part of your deliverable will actually be thinking about the stories, right? So what kind of stories can you tell that allows for people to really touch on the same things that Intercambio has done, right? Things that Gail mentioned earlier, like the impact, the mission, the progress so far, in the format of a story. You're going to do this in a written format for this course. However, going forward, you can turn that into a video, you can turn that into a diagram, a drawing, a painting. You can really be creative with it. But for this purpose, you're going to actually write it down, you're going to draft it. Next week, there will be a deliverable deadline. It's on Tuesday. And so you'll submit a draft. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be correct in any way or shape or form. And then we're going to read it and we're going to give you feedback on that story. And we're going to analyze, oh, this actually was really cool. Add more of this. Or, oh, maybe this part is a bit redundant. Let's try to see if we can remove that. And the idea is that as you're going through the course, not just for this section, but for every section, you can build some progress throughout the program. So thank you, Gail, for leading us through this. And just Gail, any other comments or reflections?
And thank you, Abhi. And I just want to also underscore, this is a safe place. If you want to tell a story that's about a pig, go ahead and try it. Tell a story about a pig that helps me understand the importance of that livelihood for a woman who's going to get it, right? It's okay. This is a safe space to just try a few creative things and rehearse that. Okay.
I love that. Thank you, Gail. Thank you. Any other questions generally before we move on to the next section that we're going to talk about? All right, so let's jump into the next section, which is kind of the second conversation that you'll have. So exactly what we saw with the video, the first thing is a story, and you always start with it either in a written format or any kind of audiovisual format. Or even if you're in a meeting, right? You're having a pitching session or a 30-minute meeting, you want to start with a story of some sort. And then oftentimes, as that piques interest for someone, they're going to ask you about what your mission is, what it is that you're trying to achieve. And so I want to start by just hearing from a couple of people, and you can just come off mute, what a mission statement means to you. What is a mission statement? And again, this is a very safe space, so take the risks and tell us what comes into your mind as you hear the words mission statement.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of an organization, you know, why it does what it does, who it's doing it for. It can sometimes include where. Yeah, but I think of it, as like, here's our target, here's what we're actually like here to do, and here's why we exist.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much.
Ideally, but there's not always like alignment, right? And there's like, right. So anyway, yeah.
Thank you, Anand. I think someone else was going. Let's see.
Yes, I want to add something. Talking about the mission statement, in addition to what Anand has said, it is also about the explanation for the reason why this organization exists. It is purpose, and all thing I want to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. Appreciate that. Amazing. Anyone else? What else is?
Yes, this is perfect. I also want to say something. I understand a mission as is committed to achieving, like what they are committed to. What do they want to achieve? That's how I understand it.
Love it. Perfect. What are we committed to achieving? Or what is the organization committed to achieving? Perfect. I'm taking notes of these. This is really helpful. Anyone else? Anything else that we're missing should be added in the mission statement?
Yeah, I don't know. Almost I agree with everything that everyone has said, but could be also looked at in a way that what we do and why it matters to us and to the people that we're serving. So if we're able to sort of like answer to that, then it sort of also answers why we care, right? Which also answers almost means what has just been said in terms of the purpose. So yeah.
Thank you, Marianne. Amazing. Oh, this is an incredible group. Our work's going to be easy. Cool. So we have a definition, and this is one of many definitions you're going to find out there. So, feel free to use the versions that we're sharing, but you also have your own experiences and knowledge, and so don't be restricted to a box that we might create here. So the version that we have, I want to share it in a second, but I do want to take a second to actually learn from you all what your current understanding of mission statement is. So I'm going to open up the chat and invite you all to take exactly a minute and write down the mission statement of your organization or an organization that you're working for and analyzing for this course. And just in one sentence, as short as possible, write down their mission statement as it is right now. 1 minute to write down your current mission statement in the chat. We'll give exactly 1 minute.
Oh my gosh, come on, everybody. Write down what you think your mission statement is. It's okay, great. All right, go for it.
30 seconds, 20 seconds, 24.
Have a go. Okay.
10 more seconds.
Is it supposed to be so difficult? Oh my God.
No, it's ideally not super difficult.
It's scary sometimes.
Okay.
In the chat box. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It should be on your bottom of the Zoom.
Yeah.
Starting to see. Perfect. Okay. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll give 10 more seconds for anyone. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, time is up. Thank you so much. This is incredible. What an incredible list of mission statements here. Let's go ahead and look at the definition. So this is, again, we're sharing one definition. You might actually see multiple. This definition actually comes from someone called Kevin Starr. And it's from an article that will be shared with you. And this article is quite interesting for you to refer to. So please do go back to it afterwards. It's called the 8-word mission statement. And it's written on a magazine. It's called the Stanford Social Innovation Review. And it was written about a decade ago. And it still is very relevant and continues to be even more relevant. And I want to touch on something that I think was mentioned earlier about how sometimes the challenge is that organizations do not always have a clarity of what their mission is, or even if they have clarity, they're not able to always do work that is aligning with their mission, right? Whether it's because of funding, whether it's because of the existing situations, right? Socioeconomic, political situations. Sometimes organizations have to move away from their mission. However, even if you get to that situation, it is important to start with clarity on what the mission statement really is. And to do that, we've created this kind of formula of sorts, right? That has 3 key elements. And this is really recommended from Kevin, or recommended by Kevin Starr. So the formula always, according to him, starts with a verb, a target population, and an outcome that implies something to measure. And according to him, we want it in 8 words or less, right? So you want to keep it as succinct as possible. And so we're going to look at a few examples of what this formula looks like when it's being executed into action. And then we're going to actually come back to the mission statement that you all have put in the chat. And if anyone hasn't, please do make sure it's in the chat because we'll use it right after this. So here are a few examples for us to look at, right? So we're looking at some before and the after is the 8-word version, right? So the before of the mission statement was, and this is an anonymous organization. The organization's mission was to empower marginalized communities through capacity building for sustainable development. Well, I highlighted a few things. So the ones that I've underscored, you can see that there's some pretty big words, right? Empower, capacity building, sustainable development. A lot of these words are jargons that doesn't really mean a lot, right? It's not very clear what that means. So then the after, when we try to work with the 8-word mission statement formula, this is what we get. Equip farmers with modern practices, lifting rural communities from poverty, or you could say out of poverty, right? So we go from terms like empower, which is so broad, to equipping farmers, right? In the first one, we don't know who we're working with. In the second one, turns out this organization actually served farmers. And so again, many of you mentioned like defining the who in your mission statement is absolutely crucial and goes back to what Kevin Starr says as well. It's having a clear target population is very, very important. Even if down the road you might expand the target population, maybe you start working with one group and you might work with more populations, that's okay. But you want to start with a very specific target population. In this case, it is farmers. In terms of what they do, they offer modern practices training, it seems like, right? Equipping. And what they're trying to achieve, the outcome that they're trying to achieve is lifting rural communities out of poverty, right? Now, that compared to capacity building for sustainable development seems a lot more specific and a lot more clear. If I'm a funder, it allows me to make a decision of like whether I am interested in funding agriculture, whether I'm interested in funding poverty alleviation work, whether I'm interested in the kind of idea around rural development versus urban development. So it gives me the important data points to be able to say, yes, this is interesting, or no, this is not interesting. Whereas the first one just confuses me, so I don't even want to have a conversation with you, right? So that's kind of the important piece about the mission statement is the more succinct and clear you are, the faster and the better your chances of being able to understand whether you're a good fit for a funder or not. We're going to look at two more examples, and then we'll open up for some questions and comments here. Second example was an organization that said, in the beginning, they said their mission was to promote awareness and create positive change by transforming attitudes and behavior. Again, pretty big words, right? Promoting awareness. Awareness about what? We don't really know. You know, creating positive change by transforming attitudes. Again, attitudes towards what? We don't really know. And so we were working with them and we try to clarify. So this is what we got as an after or second version of this, the 8-word version. It says, amplify climate understanding through education, driving sustainable actions globally, right? So the target audience is a little bit broad because they're trying to work globally, but the issue that they're focused on is very clear. We know that they're focused on climate change understanding or climate education. I might argue that we could probably go even further and make this more specific, right? So we could maybe make it more regional, have a more specific audience. I would maybe ask if this could be, are we focusing on youth? Are we focusing on a certain age group? Maybe this organization was focusing globally, which is fine as well. But you can actually do more here. And then the last one was deliver impactful solutions that catalyze systemic shifts and facilitate paradigm changes. Wow, that's a lot of terms, right? That's a lot of big words. Impactful solutions. What do we mean by that? Catalyzing systemic shifts. Again, not sure what systemic shift in which area are we talking about. And facilitating paradigm changes. The word paradigm change doesn't even mean much of an outcome, right? Again, it lacks a lot of that clarity. And so when we try to make it a bit more specific using the 8-word mission statement formula, we learned that the organization was actually focused on providing disaster relief to help rebuild communities and restoring hope and resilience, right? So what they wanted to achieve, the outcome was restoring hope and resilience in areas where there is disaster by helping rebuild those communities. It's so drastically different. One might even say that these two are not the mission statements of the same organization. And that's the kind of power of having clarity in your mission, where someone can read this after mission statement and say, okay, so you're working in disaster relief. Yes, our foundation or our institution can fund disaster relief work, or they might say, no, we don't fund disaster relief. However, if you give someone a mission statement that says delivering impactful solutions, 9 out of 10, those people will first ask you, what does that mean? And second, they will get rather more confused than clear about what it is that you're trying to achieve. So that's really kind of where we want to take our next part of this conversation or the workshop. And so we're going to now invite you to work on your mission statements. And we're going to do it in a bit of a fun way. But first, just a couple of quotes from this article that is very, very important, or why we use the 8-word mission statement. The first thing is that the 8-word mission statement and this formula focuses on very, very concrete results, right? So rather than just saying creating awareness, which we saw in the past in the last example, or rather than saying empowering someone or changing attitudes, those aren't really kind of real impacts. They are definitely process of steps of things you need to do to create impact, but they don't really tell you where the path was supposed to end up, right? They don't give you an outcome. An outcome cannot just be awareness. It's the result of what our awareness that we want to highlight in our mission statement. The second thing, and this actually goes back to something that I think Marian was saying, is that a good mission statement is about the what, not the how, right? Many organizations are very, very focused on the how. How are we going to achieve the change that we want to see? But they forget to mention the what it is. What is the change that we want to see? Again, what is that outcome that we want to see? So a mission statement is not a place for you to explain your model. right? This is not a place where you explain, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to, for example, if you're working with farmers, a mission statement is not a place where you're going to say, we're going to provide training, we're going to provide, funding, microfinance, we're going to do market access. That's not the place for a mission statement. Mission statement is really covering what do we want to see as a result of the training, of the microfinance and the market access. What change do we want to see? And you're just kind of giving that introduction. And then the next steps, right? The next steps is where you're going to start explaining a little bit more of the how. But the temptation to explain everything about what you do needs to be put on the side for now. And then we come back to it later when we start explaining our project. Questions? Oh, yeah, questions before we do a little challenge here for you all.
I think my question is, why is it that almost all the mission statements that we come across actually include the how? I think in my experience, like a number of them, and that is so tempting, because when I look through almost like most of everything that we have come up with, it includes the how. Like, why is it that people are tempted to explain that at that level, and how can we avoid it? Like moving.
I love that question. Yeah, I can go first. I would love to hear your thoughts as well. I think the temptation is because a lot of the how is actually a little bit more clear for organizations, right? If you're still, especially in the startup phase, you usually have you come up with an idea of a thing that you want to do, a service you want to provide, a model that you want to test. Those are usually a little bit more clear, right? You can offer training, we can offer microfinance, we can offer market access. And so it's tempting to want to put that out there in front of people and make that the kind of exciting piece of what you're trying to do. Whereas actually working on a mission statement is a very complicated piece, because you're thinking a lot about outcome. And especially in the earlier stages, organizations don't have a very clear understanding of what an outcome could be, right? You might be just testing ideas and you're hoping that this is what's going to happen, but you don't have as many results. You have probably not built out a very clear theory of change, right? Like it's not the easiest thing to do at the very beginning. So personally, when I see a lot of the how in the beginning, it's because that's what we actually understand and that's what we want to explain. Whereas I think from the funder side of things, they've seen a lot of proposals that do very similar things that you do, right? Like it's the how is not going to be the most different thing. It's actually the what you're trying to achieve in which community. I think that inspires them. So personally, I feel like that's the gap that I see a lot here. But I'd love to hear Gail's perspective on this as well.
Oh, it's just such a good question. And it's so tricky because there's how everybody is doing it and how we think that we're supposed to do it. And every funder is going to be persnickety and have, their own thing. But like when we think about the example from Intercambio, all right, they provide English language training or curriculum. That's what they do. But they don't say we have sessions every Monday, we put volunteers together, it's a mentor-based peer group, we have a workbook. So there's elements of the how that can be implied, right? When they say we provide English language training, but they don't go so far into it. So it's going to be an individual balance for yourself, of course. Of course, some readers are going to want to know the how, but you also want to anticipate that your reader is smart, right? Your reader understands something in a few words, and then later will be drawn into English language training for immigrants. Then you can tell the how also in various projects. One how is to find a strong base of volunteers who will be teachers. That's one how, right? Another how is to build a workbook. So I'm not sure if I'm giving you a very specific answer. It's a great question, but we're just hoping that you will start to think through, do you have to, give everything away in the very first sentence about the steps you want to take? Because you might have lots of hows. You may have a project that's only about making the workbook. That's a how, right? And then your how is going to help you to ask for money just for the workbook. But it's tricky. You'll have to, I'm sure, massage this a lot. Go ask your team. I hope that was somewhat helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I had a question too, because in many cases, when we think about a mission statement, at least in my case, I think it is big inspirational, words that helps to, try to express the culture that the company wants to build, or maybe, yeah, the way of doing things that a company or maybe even an entrepreneur wants to push forward through the venture, right? And when what I am understanding of and your advice is more to think as how someone that is reading for the first time our venture is maybe understand what we are trying to solve. And I wanted to hear your take on that, because in many cases the other aspect of the a mission statement that many entrepreneurs do is to explain the why, and maybe their purpose and or personal purpose on it. And I wanted to know your take on it, because I understand clearly what you are saying, and that a founder needs to understand first what you are trying to do, right? And that's maybe the reason why the 8 word mission statement. But I wanted to know, how do you see the other way, or in which part of the story that we are trying to tell that is relevant, right? I think that's the question.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. We could have a whole hour or two talking about this. And I love the rigorous talk. I'm going to just add, and then Avi can come in. As being someone in the world of philanthropy for a long time, I noticed that the writing of mission statements and story and assets done by many people, who are starting their social ventures has been an oppressive process. Right? Like, you have to feel like, oh, what do I say? And I got to say it the right way. And I personally, along with some other groups of people, are trying to narrow the gap around that. Right? So to be thinking about telling the how comes from a long, long line of funders thinking that you're supposed to know, that you're supposed to give them how. So then they can decide, we're going to send soccer balls to a refugee camp, right? But that's not what needs to happen in today's world as much, right? So the how, we're encouraging you to think about balancing what convention and traditional, fundraising requirements have been, and what's comfortable for you, and how you can perhaps start to shorten that, right? So we don't need to have the power be in the philanthropist's hands of, they're going to provide soccer balls, I'm in, right? It should be a little bit more nuanced sometimes. And I don't know if that fully answers your question, because you do have to be in the system, but you can also think about, I don't need to tell you if I'm going to get 10 soccer balls or 2 soccer balls. I'm just going to tell you that this is a value I have, right? That athletics is important for brain development. Or I'm just making that up kind of thing. But Abhi, what would you add?
Absolutely. And I think it is important that there is some kind of an inspiration behind what you're trying to achieve, right? I think it's important that drives your team, that drives your funders towards a certain goal, right? The purpose of being is important to be clear. And at the same time, it needs to be like far away from jargon. And we're going to do an activity now which touches on that, because so often you hear this a lot in funny enough, in a lot of tech companies, and not to say tech companies are horrible, but they tend to have these broad mission statement, right? Like Zoom's mission statement will be like to connect the world so that everyone's like making social change or something. And in many ways, they are helping us do it, right? We're all in this call and it's happening. But at the end of the day, it is a for-profit company that has a certain other mission, right? It's to make money for a certain group of people and through a service, right? Which is completely fair. And so I think a lot of what in especially like popular literature, what we see about mission statement that comes from a certain sector and a certain few sectors, I think is actually not as reflective in a social impact space, because when you're talking to funders, similar to what Gail mentioned, or if you're talking to partners even, they don't want to have a lofty, using a lot of jargon like mission statement. They actually want to have a lot more clarity on what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then the how, as Gail mentioned, could actually be your own deciding, right? You could decide how you want to achieve that. You could pilot it, you could test and try different things and not be boxed into the specific how of what a funder wants you to do. So we're going to do an activity that actually maybe answers your question a little bit more. And we're going to invite you to practice this process of rethinking the mission statement. So this is a challenge. We call it Say It in 8 Words. And we just saw the definition of what
Sometimes
an
it's
8-word
10.
mission statement looks like. Yes, absolutely. And sometimes it's 5. Like it can be any number. We're not gonna like box you into number of words. But what's gonna happen is that we will send you a few words to avoid in the chat. And you're gonna have about 5 minutes to reframe your mission statement without using any of those words. And after 5 minutes, we'll invite each participant to come off mute and just tell us what their new version of the mission statement is with the class. So this requires you to do some writing, make sure you have some pen and paper or your laptop. And this requires you to go back to your original mission statement, which you shared in the chat, and look through these words and see if you have any repetition, see if you're fitting the 8-word formula that we shared with you. Again, not required to have only 8 words, you can have more. And then you're going to come back in 5 minutes to share your updated mission statement. And here are the words that you cannot use. So these are words you have to avoid, okay? The words are impact, change, empowerment, equality, struggle, uplift. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but there are a lot of these fun words that you cannot use. Take 5 minutes. I'm putting 5 minutes on the clock, and then we'll come back and we'll hear from everyone what their updated mission statement is. Okay, 5 minutes start now.
And just have a go. It doesn't have to be perfect, but kind of makes me smile to see all those words you can't use. Try it.
Do we write in the chat?
Not yet. We've got another minute left. Thank you, Marianne. 35 seconds to go.
Yeah, as the clock winds down, I just want to say that if you found your brain kind of going clicky clacky, oh my goodness, what am I thinking? That's good. That's good. Get out of the box a little bit. Find those words in there that you didn't know you had, right? Talk about your project. And it may have been very easy for some of you, and it may have been very challenging, and that's okay. We're asking you to think differently, just a little bit, whether you end up using this mission statement or not. And this is an exercise you can take to your team and just say, hey, team, I'm going to tell you to write a mission statement and not use any of these words, and see if they throw their hands up in the air and pull their eyebrows off. I don't know, but it's a really great exercise to try thinking differently.
Agreed very much so. Thank you, Gail. Yes. Okay, let's jump in. So we're going to start with Anil. Anil, are you here? Are you ready? Police? Okay. Not hearing from. Okay, well, let's go to the next person. David, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we had from you earlier. Tell us, and you can read it out loud. Tell us what's your updated mission statement.
Okay, I wrote to train low-income students with tech skills for successful tech employment. Or employment without a 2 times tech.
Gail, what are we thinking here? This is the version 2.0.
Yeah, you know what? I really like how you've narrowed down, from increasing opportunities for personal and professional development. I like this, and I would say it can even, as I'm sure you recognize, it could go even just another step further, right? Like the to in front of a verb is often just a throwaway word, right? Like you don't need the to, right? Just as an example from an editing standpoint. And then, train low-income students, maybe you have to think about, maybe, is it like first graders? You don't have to put that in right then, but that is going to be a question. With tech skills, that makes a lot of sense, right? And for successful employment, I think that could work. I think as I would be reading this, and then I have an idea of who your target population is, what you're going to be doing. I know that there's going to be some how, right? Because tech skills could be a workbook, it could be getting a phone, it could be a lot of different things. And then for successful employment, you're going to set me up. I'm going to want to know, do you have some line, right? Do you know that if I learn how to work my phone, that I'm going to get a job? So there's a little bit of conversation that could come in there. So I appreciate that you went first. I appreciate that you took the effort to do this and that you're sharing this so we can have a conversation. I think it's a much more improved, and just think through some of the responses that I had as a reader, right? Of what, if you're going to use this, what you're going to then need to say next. Does that help, David?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amazing. Anyone else in the class? Do we have feedback or any kind of ideas for David? Any other word that you would use maybe if you were in this place?
Here, thinking out loud, I will change the tech skills to coding skills, because what we are doing is, I think that it's a way to narrow in the.
Yep. Much clearer. I absolutely know that there's a difference between coding and using TikTok.
Okay. Amazing. Thanks for going, David. Appreciate it. And we'll come back to this. So you can.
Well, so go ahead, yeah. Oh, okay, sure. So with this one, I think with the after, like a successful employment, I think of the easy metric then being like, are you employed by the end of the boot camp, or are you employed by the end of the experience with the organization? I think that could also be refined more to is there can it be more meaningful? Like, are there other ways to measure that successful employment, right? Is it you know, a certain standard of employment or at a certain place at a certain type of organization or by a certain timeline. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good
like,
point, because successful is kind of a, you know, success for one person might be, so maybe it's just for employment or regular.
First
I don't
employment.
know, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that if the outcome is the first employment for these guys, it's not the same that.
Oh.
Yeah, so that it might be a way to be more specific with the outcome.
Yeah, yeah. For their first job, or yeah, it's good. It's great. It's great to workshop these things, because then you start thinking, oh, okay, I could say this instead. Great. Okay.
Absolutely.
And thank you,
And
Anna.
again, yeah, thank you. Great points there. And I think again, this is just workshop, right? This is not the final draft. As you're like spending your Friday afternoon, you might come up with different words and ideas. So we'll try to kind of leave you with this, and you can kind of come back to it as well. Anna, we actually have you next. So if you want to come off mute and give us a quick insight into your updated mission statement.
Yeah, so the new mission statement is, I'll put it in the chat. So Dent teaches Baltimore City youth design thinking and maker skills to start their own ventures and live with agency. So I think like this, yeah, I had a question around, you know, how to explain the impact or mission statements of organizations that are like really like, you know, when I think of the nonprofit sector, right, I think of like a lot of ways in which nonprofits are hampered are often through, you know, because they don't get funding because of like their mission statements, right, or because they're not like and so, you know, I think this organization does a really, really good job of serving the like community, and they do so much, right? Like they do and they do such an effective job of it. And like other organizations in Baltimore City, they are definitely, you know, they're competing for a lot of the same resources, but they do so much with it. And so I think like I threw in the agency, and even when you look online to like their official, you know, like mission statement, you know, their official mission statement is this, but I think like the agency component is pretty important.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I will note is that, so you've got a kind of almost like a two-layer of outcomes, right? So the first one is, and this actually goes back to what we saw in the previous example, David, as well. Like the first thing is that how many of the, you know, youth are able to start their own ventures, and that's something that you measure maybe within the first like 9 to 12 months of, you know, graduating from this program, and you know, you track that metric. And then the agency piece is really the outcome, right? That's what you would measure maybe 2 to 3 years down the road and how they're living their lives. And so it's really interesting because in some ways you could probably skip the start their own ventures piece, because what if learning design thinking skills allows for someone to be able to like be an entrepreneur, right? Because it seems like the focus is on entrepreneurship, but I wonder if some of the youth might just go into another organization and build those organizations using the maker skills, and, you know, go into like academia and things like that. So part of me is like, this is boxing you in more than you need to. And just, you know, being able to say like, teaching these skills so they can live with agency, it's actually fairly clear for me. Gail, I don't know what you think there.
Yeah, you know, this whole idea of the word agency is just so interesting to me, and I could talk about that for a long time as well, because I think that it's a word used by people who already have resources, because they know then what agency means, right? So there's a little bit of a undercurrent of exclusivity in the word itself, but that comes in. I mean, people will read it, but some people might not understand that, like it's part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
For sure.
So
and that's part of it too, right? Is like recognizing that, you know, youth are multifaceted and not just like, and you're right, like, you know, there obviously is couched in some privilege, right? Like you have to have been able to view and see, you know, a certain style of like living and community to be able to like say, hey, I can have an impact or I can have agency. But I think that is like ultimately what they're trying to like, you know, measure, right? Is like how capable or how empowered. And I know we're not supposed to use empowered, but like how capable do you feel to like, you know, make changes in your community, make changes in your circumstances or in your situation, right? And like that could that started with ventures definitely, but like, you know, yeah, it's definitely not limited to that. Like a lot of these kids go in different directions, but it really starts with like, you know, yeah, like our process does start with, you know, the entrepreneurship mindset. So there that does seem to be like a more critical component, which is why I want to avoid saying entrepreneurship, and so I say like start their own ventures, but that is like also really, so this is helpful.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's super great to keep talking about it and unpacking it and understand that maybe it means that you have a definition of agency, right? And what that means, because agency in one community might, like in Baltimore, might be different in, let's say, you know, rural Mississippi, right?
Sure. For sure.
And then I do think, I just want to throw out there that I have the assumption that anyone who gets to have new skills, whether they're design thinking skills or their maker skills, skill development is inherently going to reward with agency and voice. So there is a little bit of that. The reader will, if you're going to use, for me, just think about what that agency is going to look like for the Baltimore City youth, because I know if someone takes a class, hopefully, and they show up every day and they participate, they're going to have a new sense of their identity. But
ideally,
it's fascinating. So anyways, I'm rambling. We probably, oh, Marion, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just have a question, Fernand. I think for me, I would ask myself, why is it important for them to start their own ventures? And also, why is it important for them to live with agency? And I think when we answer those two questions, then we get to the outcome. Because I feel like we've learned, them starting their own ventures is one how, and also maybe unpacking the last statement for them, the beneficiaries, to actually understand what that means. Because I personally, I would think that would mean so many things to each one of them. But again, that was just like my curiosity in terms of like, why is it important for them to really live with agency? I think once we're able to have that into the mission statement, it may be a little bit clearer for me, at least.
So Galen, Abby, quick question then. This, and Marion, thank you so much for that, because that really makes me think of another thing. Is there, I mean, in reading like live with agency, that's also prompted like this group, and therefore I would assume, you know, evaluators and philanthropists to talk about like what even like living with agency means, right? And so I personally think that like when we have a mission statement that includes something like this, that even, you know, prompts conversation, and look at like the dialogue has already been elevated, right, around like what does, you know, outcomes for students actually mean to like live with this like agency, this like ethereal concept that we can't easily quite measure, right? But like that also like points out to the different ways in which this organization is thinking about measurement, right? And so I see that like I think that so I'm curious to hear from the two of you then, as people with experience in this and as, you know, folks with experience within like philanthropy. Is there a value? Is there some benefit in even like bringing in something as, you know, like difficult and multifaceted as agency, right? As complex of a topic as agency into a mission statement, because of, you know, these conversations, the externalities of like reading this, right? Like, oh, that's interesting. What does agency mean for that, right? And like,
yeah, and I think it's really important that you're thinking through this, because perhaps then if you're going to, you know, when you use this word, most readers are going to be like, okay, Show me. So going back to that example of intercambio, right?
Yeah.
That woman, we would say, gained agency.
For sure. 100%.
Right? Because, and her English may not be perfect, right? But she gained agency in her confidence. She went out into the world with her husband. She started to articulate dreams. So maybe Intercambio uses the word agency in their mission statement. I don't recall offhand, or maybe they use it in some of their narrative. But just if you want to use that word, and I'm not saying not to, but then follow it up right away with an example.
Right.
You know, here's when pay. And so then I know that you have shaped what you think agency is. Is agency confidence? Is agency saying, I now know how to put, go to the bank or something? And the stories that you then share might articulate it. And I admire that you want to, break that down, because it is a word that some people use, I want to say carelessly.
Right. For sure.
Right.
For sure.
And I don't think that it sounds like you or Dent wants to use it carelessly. So bravo.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say, and I'm gonna type this up just so that there's like notes of this as well, is I think because it's a really great question, and I sit with this question a lot, especially when we think about terms like agency, resilience, and ownership. And there are a few other terms like that are quite broad in a way that like your reader might like complicate things, which is a good thing, right? Complicating an issue is actually important. But one piece that I hear oftentimes is that, okay, all of these things are great, right? Having more ownership, like we talk a lot about like land rights and stuff, or having more resilience to climate change, economic volatility, and then agency as well. I think all of these are very important, especially amongst communities that are often underserved. Those are the things that you want to touch on. And what's the next step? What happens, if we're able to actually make sure that our audiences have more agency, or are more resilient, or have more ownership, and that what happens next, I think, goes back to what Marianne was saying, is like the next piece, which is the larger outcome. And what I've heard and I've seen and I've even written is sometimes that means talking about thriving livelihood, right? So like you want these young people to have a thriving life, and for them to have a thriving life, these are the 3, 4, 5 conditions that need to be met. They need to have, and it doesn't have to be the same things that I'm telling you right now, but you already have agency, but like these are the preconditions that we want to achieve to be able to really see that all of the young people in this community are really having thriving livelihood. So just kind of thoughts there. I know talking and typing is not my best skill, so I didn't write it, but I'm sure you got that. So another way to kind of think about that as well. But really, really interesting conversation, and I'm sure other folks are also thinking about this, because oftentimes the expansion of your outcome can very much allow you to be able to tell someone like a clear end goal for the community that you're serving. So helpful to have this conversation. Amazing. Okay. I know we have a bunch of more people, but we're not going to be able to make it through all, but there are going to be these empty slides, and we recommend you to just go back to it and just look at the before and just work on that after, and we will give you feedback. The same process that we've done with a few people, we're going to actually do that with the rest of you, with all of you, as part of your assignment. So please take some time to work through this. The article will be linked as well, so you can take a few minutes to read through it. I think it's about a 5-minute read, so it's not a very long read, and highly recommend you to just go through it one more time before you work on your assignment. I want to leave, because I think we're going to do a quick 1-minute break. I want to leave you with this video, which is another 5-minute video that you can watch. Gail and I just talk on camera about what mission statements are. So if it felt like I was speaking too fast, or things weren't clear, you can play this video and just go back to the key concepts as you work on your assignments as well. Let's take a 1-minute stretch break, and then we'll jump into the last part of our session today. All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, so the next section that we're going to cover, and this is kind of following the story, the mission, is something called the assets. And we're going to do a quick activity on this to kind of unpack this a bit more. Now, the other term that you hear quite often is traction. So the word asset can also be referred to as traction. And this is often kind of the third part of your conversation with the funder. They want to know, okay, you've got a beautiful story, really kind of powerful. You've got a very clear mission. I know what it is that you want to achieve. Tell me, what have you done so far, right? They will ask you the kind of question, and this is something that comes up in proposals and applications all the time. And assets really allow you to clarify that piece a little bit more. And I want to kind of give a definition if this is the first time you're hearing of the word asset or traction. So an asset is anything and everything that helps your organization exist and move forward, right? It's not just the programmatic stuff that you think it might be. It's actually going beyond. It's really covering anything and everything that you can bring forward. And this is very important in the earlier stages of your venture, because you might not think that you have a lot of assets coming in, but you actually have a lot more to offer to the funder, right? So here's a list of kind of things that you can outline in your assets. It can be the number of people that you serve. So that's the X, right? It's X number of people that have been served through my program so far. Or if you've done a pilot, I did a pilot with 2 people, that is completely okay. It also includes the number of, the amount of money that you've raised, right? Dollars that you've raised, or if you've got an in-kind support, right? Let's say capital, someone gave you land to start your work. That is an important resource to put out there. Number 3, which is oftentimes very much underrepresented in proposals, are your skills. What kind of skills are you bringing to this work? Do you have experience in farming? Do you have experience in working in filmmaking? Do you have experience doing something related to the skills that are required for you to be successful in your venture? And if so, this is a good place to list it up. It can also include a few other things. This can include your mentors, your advisors. It can include your past pilot projects. If you've done work in other companies or organizations, a couple of the folks here started a resolution venture. If that did not succeed, this is a great place to talk about that, right? What did you learn from that experience? It is good to actually highlight those challenges or experiences and learning lessons in this section. And obviously this can include your educational background. What university did you attend? What kind of program did you get certified with, and things like that as well. So assets can actually incorporate a lot more than what we think. Oftentimes we think assets can incorporate, the number of people we've served or the amount of money you've raised, but really take a few minutes to think a bit beyond that. And we're going to do this in a couple of minutes. You're going to have 3 minutes, and we'll have 1.5 minutes per participant, just in the interest of time. And I want you to help your partner think of as many assets as possible. Just take a piece of pen and paper and just write down as many things that come into your mind as possible. You don't have to have it final for now, but then we'll come back and we'll hear from a few people what kind of assets came up in this group collectively. So 3 minutes to help your partner identify as many assets as possible, ask them questions, clarify as much as possible, and see if you can identify at least 5 assets for your partner. There's a note taker, which is always really interesting. Okay, I think we've got, yes.
Could you please just put up the previous slide, please?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I will share it on the breakout room as well.
Okay.
Perfect, amazing. Okay, so we will see you back here in 3 minutes. Gail, can you hear me? And Christian, Elise, oh, there we go.
Yeah, I was
Hi,
in this
Gail.
room with the Firefly note taker, and I'm like, I was just sending you a message on WhatsApp, like, am I supposed to be here or come back?
All
don't know
good.
what-
There's one of
Yeah.
the participant has an AI note taker, and so it's so weird because it always like for the breakout room, it's like you can't put them with one, so it always takes me like a minute to identify
It was
who's
like
the
a
AI.
real robot in a room. There was somebody like that with the Capadia. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
Amon had that, and then also I think our meeting with Vu, there was someone who had that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna close the breakout room, and then after this, I'll pass it to you, Gail, for the reading of the.
So it's 8:45. So how much time do you want for like to go over, the
Assignments.
next week and the assignments?
Assignments it's just one slide, so I'll take 2 minutes. If you're able to finish by 58, the discussion on the case study or the You Be the Funder, that's good.
Okay. Okay. Also going to say something about people participating because we're going to keep track of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm taking notes of like who's here. So. Waiting for folks to jump in. 3 minutes is a short time for a group of really smart resolution fellows who have done a lot. So this might be a tough activity, but let's hear it from people. Maybe just one quick asset that came up in your conversation from your partner, something that you learned about your partner. So I'll start from the top and then you can just like pass it on to the next person. David, what did you learn about your partner? Just one kind of interesting asset that they have.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned is that Mariano with her organization is working alongside with 60 volunteers from different universities. in order to apply their program. So I think that's a very great asset that she has.
That's amazing asset. Yeah, let's celebrate that. That's super cool. Awesome. Marion, what did you learn about David's venture and his work? One
The
asset.
amount of capital that they've been able to raise, $30,000 in 3 years. That's super awesome. For someone who just only has $6,000 since 2019. So yeah, I'm like 30K, yo. Awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah. Please, let's celebrate. This is a great way for us to also just enjoy and appreciate each other's company and the work. Thank you both. Let's see, Grace, who were you with and what was your partner's asset?
Okay, so I was with Christian, and I learned from him that resolution was actually his first asset. So aside that, he also took part in other fellowships and institutions like the MasterCard alumni, that he was able to learn a lot in order to support and make a progress in his venture. Yes, I think this was what I was able to learn from him before the breakout rooms ended.
Amazing. Okay, so MasterCard fellowship, that sounds incredible. Christian, what did you learn about Grace?
Thank you so much, Abby. I was very delighted to meet Grace. And yeah, as on my side too, her first asset is about the Resolution Project Fellowship she won with her team. Also, she is a MasterCard Foundation alumna. So it is about a great asset she has in order to move forward with her venture. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Wow. Also great to see that you both have some similarities in programs. That's lovely. Okay, let's see who else is left. Christian, Grace, we're done with Anand and Sandra. Anand, would you like to share what you learned about Sandra?
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the assets that we were identifying was the asset of her as a leader, and identifying that interpersonal skills when working with like teams, and like the skill there bringing people together is an asset, and so we were talking more about like bringing that in as like another aspect to what she can counter the resources or assets.
Amazing.
Rather,
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And especially
definitely.
as a founder. Sorry, Gail.
I'm sorry. I just said definitely. Yes. That's a soft skill, but a super, super important skill.
Absolutely. And I think, Sandra, you're our last person. What did you learn about Anand?
I learned about one of the assets he has been able to build his technology and equipment, as well as the people he's inspiring, like the community. That is the biggest thing I got from our discussion. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you all. Thanks for going. I think that's it. I'm looking at my list here, but thank you all for sharing. This is a start of a brainstorm. I would like for you to sit a little bit more over the weekend to think through what are other things that you've done, certifications, programs, mentors, things that you can really kind of put together. And this is going to be important because you don't know when a certain asset might actually be coming up in a conversation, right? Someone might ask you about a technology you've built, and that's a great place to lay out that you have experience with it. Someone might ask you about your leadership skills, and that's a perfect place to talk about your leadership experience and skills, right? So just having that list is a good place to start, and then you can kind of decide where you're going to use some of these things along the way as well. Okay, so for our last 10 minutes or so, I'm going to pass to Gail to talk about our case study where which we're going to analyze. Gail.
And I just want to say too, just to follow up on what Abby was saying, is that there's a value in asking somebody else, like, tell me what I do, tell me what my assets are. So use your family, use your friends, use this group, because when somebody is witnessing us, right, sometimes they see things in us that we're maybe last to see. So use that as an exercise with your team and your friends. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left before time flies. And you all were asked to read a case study, and we're calling this a case study because it is a way for you to now shift gears, put on the hat, put on the bracelet, put on the demeanor of someone who would be a potential funder and read an example. We call it a mentor text and a case study. Read an example, the first page of a previous student's proposal. And we want you to read it, and then and I assume that you did read it, and there's a few questions. And by doing this, you get to have a sense of, oh, wow, I totally would have done that differently. Or, oh, wow, I'm borrowing that. I'm going to use the way that that person did that. We can learn from one another. So open it up. You'll see that in the chat that it's the case study, the first page. You're going to be reading several pages of this 5-page document over the course of this boot camp that correspond to what our learning is. So just quickly skim it, and then we're going to go down to the questions at the bottom. It's going to be a conversation. Again, this workshop mode. What was confusing? What was clear? Take a minute and skim through it, and then look at the questions below.
If anyone's having challenges accessing the link, just let me know on the chat and I'll try to find others.
I am. I'm getting this AI companion thing. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Someone might have.
Okay, let me try again. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay, so this is spread over 2 pages, but it represents Alias's, assignment for this first section of mission statement, story, and assets. And you've read it, and you just maybe skimmed through it. And I'm just gonna, because we're kind of running low on time fuel here, when you read it, just right from the start, pretend you're a funder and you're super busy and you have like a stack of proposals to read. And the first decision you're going to make is, should I keep reading, right? So let me just find out from some of you, based on reading this so far and what you know and who you are and all how busy you are, would you keep reading this? And if so, what do you think?
I'm happy to give my thoughts.
You're on a committee. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think that there were a lot of things that made this harder to understand. And like even I read this last week and like went through the questions, and even like skimming it now, in trying to think like, what does the responder actually do? I'm looking for it, right? Like I'm looking for that mission statement. And so yeah, I guess I'm not totally clear like why this is as brilliant as it is. Like why has it been like so groundbreaking? I'm curious, like maybe in understanding more of the landscape of Slovenia. Maybe that's why I need, or like maybe I need to understand the assets of like the volunteer firefighters that they're working with. Yeah, it felt tough. It felt tougher, and at the same time, like I was piqued. Like I don't know anything about Slovenia and their response systems. So I would continue reading, but I also am not fatigued by having to read so many of these. So like, skeptically cautious.
That's a great answer. And I'll comment a little bit more on your intrigue. But let's see, David, what would you add?
Yeah, what I didn't understand, even reading it again, is that what is the specific problem that maybe this solution was coming from. I mean, I didn't. For me, it wasn't clear to understand what was the size of the problem or the frequency maybe, and that yeah, was difficult for me to understand. I don't know if it was me, but that was a part that I was looking actively of what is the problem that this person is trying to solve and what is the solution, and I didn't quite understand it.
Okay, and one more person, Sandra, would you keep reading? Are you on the fence?
Reading it is really difficult to understand the real problem they are solving and how they are solving it. She tries to explain, showing a problem that is not clear and a solution that is not clear as well. So both the problem and the solution are not clear.
Yeah, it's interesting that we want to have a clarity of the problem. Some of us might know right away what the problem is, and it's not the section, it's not necessarily the problem statement section, but we're still curious about that. We want to know, what's happening. And in response to what Anand was saying, there's a certain amount of curiosity just about the country and the response system that draws us in. And there's also, it's really quite compelling to think about a situation in which fire trucks cannot get to a fire. And that's a universal thing, like, oh, wow, that would be awful if that, and so there's a drawing in of some context that, could make us, our expectations curiouser. Like, we're like, oh, I want to know more about this, because that's such a horrible situation among many probably horrible situations in the world. And so, but the expectations for me are that I'm going to get some answers pretty quickly about what that means, right? How they are going to, solve that problem. And probably some funders reading it will immediately start to Google, right? Unfortunately, they'll want to go to Slovenia, website and learn more about it. So there is a curiosity, and we do want to read more, possibly because of just our general curiosity, possibly also because of something that's suggested. Not saying that that's right or wrong, it's just how we're workshopping this. Okay, we just have 2 minutes left. Oh my gosh. All right, Abby, take us to the end. Thank you, everybody. Maybe we'll have more time. Use these mentor texts. Use the questions to keep learning. Thank you.
Yeah. And just one last thing I'll add there is that, so as Gail mentioned, we're going to read like 4 parts of this every week. And in no way are these perfect grants. We don't want to give you perfect grant proposals to read. That is not helpful. And so this is exactly what we want to do is understand what works well, what doesn't work well as a funder, right? You're all taking on the role of like a funder who potentially has 50 of these to read in a day. And what are things that are like sticking? What are things that do not make sense? Need more clarity. And then hopefully by the end of this, in the 4th week, we will decide as a group whether we would fund this proposal or not. So next week, we're going to actually read a bit more of this. And with that, I'll just kind of share our assignment for the week ahead. There are 3 sets of assignments that will be assigned to you every week. One of them will have an earlier deadline on Tuesday, which is the writing assignment. And then the other 2 are more open-ended. So the first assignment is to watch additional videos. I will send you a PDF with the presentation from this session that has the link to the videos. You can go and watch them on YouTube. They're about 7 minutes each. Just take your time to watch them one at a time. And then the second assignment is really following up with that. Write or rewrite or redraft your story, your mission, your assets based on the activity that we did today. I will send you a Google form where you can just submit your assignments. It's fairly simple. You don't have to create a document or anything. You just have to fill up a form. And then Gail and I are going to take that and give you feedback. So these assignments are due on Tuesday after the week. So early next week is your deadline. And once you submit it, you will give us the chance to read through it, give you feedback. That feedback can be used when you're putting together your final assignment. And the final part is reading. So read the second part of this case study that we just discussed today and see if that's changing your mind. If you're feeling more confident about this organization, if you have more clarity, or if it's the opposite, you're actually more confused about what they do as well. And we'll come back next Friday to discuss a bit more about this. Next week, we're going to touch on problem statement. So the whole session will be dedicated to unpacking how do we define your problem, how do we explain it, and how do we then talk about the solution related to that as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let me just go to the last slide here. Thank you for being such a great engaged group. Really, really appreciate it. And as you can tell, this is a workshop. So we're hoping that everyone's able to join us for all of the live sessions, and appreciate the energy and the enthusiasm as well. Have a lovely weekend ahead, and see you all next
Yeah, and
Friday.
I just want to add too that I appreciate the rigor, and I notice when people are not participating. So if you have a problem, like with connection, or if I'm speaking too fast and waving my hands around, please let us know, because when there's somebody who's more silent, I know I also want to be in connection with that person, and that person has something to say to the group. So let us know what you might need to feel that you can engage in these rigorous conversations. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much.
See you all next
See you next week.
Friday. Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you. Bye.